man, John Pennington, George Kell Motor Company. Always a pleasure to get to see you, sir.
Always a pleasure to be seen.
We are standing amongst inventory. We have inventory, John, at George Kell Motor Company. We're watching Remember When here on the cable or on YouTube, Cable 15 TV, Facebook. What about inventory?
The 11 years I've been here, I've never seen as much new inventory as we have now.
It's incredible.
And because of the sales that we've had, we asked General Motors to send us some extra inventory because we were, at one time, we're getting a little bit short. Rebates are good, interest rates are great, so we wanted some more inventory and we got it. So if anybody's looking for a car, truck, SUV, we've got it out here, and all we ask you to do is come by, take a look, take a test drive, give us a shot. You'll like the way we do business right here.
John, you mentioned talking to General Motors and asking them about getting a few extra items in here. Not everybody can do that. You got to earn them, and you guys have earned them. So you sell one, you get one. If you ask for extra because you're a great GM dealer, you get extra pats on the back.
They have consensus, and they go back and look and see what your track record is, and they see how many units you sold in each category. And as everybody knows, we live in truck SUV country.
Absolutely.
We don't sell as many cars. We sell quite a few cars, but not as many as we do trucks and SUVs because we live in the country.
Sure.
But that's how we've got all these rows and rows and rows of Chevrolet's GMC trucks and SUVs. We've got some great deals. Chevrolet has what's called a tag event. You get to tag a certain number of vehicles on your lot, and they will allow you extra money for those.
Okay.
When you sell one of those tag vehicles, you get to pick another one.
Okay.
So we're moving forward. We've sold a lot of trucks and SUVs, but right now, for instance, we've got some diesel trucks that got almost $11,000 off.
Wow.
We've got trucks that got $10,000 off. Some of these cars, like Malibus and Impalas, has $5,000 and $6,000 off, when normally they wouldn't have but $1,500.
That's right, absolutely.
So it's a great time to come out and take a look at a vehicle, and if you pick out one of these that are tagged, you get all this extra money. In addition to, if you're Farm Bureau, you can get more.
Sure.
So it's a great time to come and take a look and look at one of these tag event vehicles. There's not anything wrong with them. They're not used. They just allowed us to pick these vehicles, say we want to take this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Tag them, get extra rebates on those, and once you sell, I think you sell two, you get to choose another one, or maybe you sell one, you get to choose two more. But anyway, it's to incentivize you to keep selling them and bringing them forward. Get out here, take a look at these. Everything from the little Chevrolet Sonic up to the crew cab diesels, we've got some of them tagged. You won't find a better deal anywhere, and again, you won't find any service in North America, than you'll find that we've got right back here in the back. So come see us.
You call. I called last week. I talked to Russell. And Russell got me in, got me out. It was a matter of just minutes. It was a matter of minutes. And I thought, well, it's probably going to take a half a day. So come by. I waited on it. He got me taken care of. I got out of there. And while I was standing there in that 2 minutes, they took care of two more customers also in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we get service. We get service work from people all over Northeast Arkansas. They might not have bought their car from us here, but they probably will in the future because they say, we come over here, we're greeted, you give us something to drive, you take care of our problem. It's exactly what you said it was. You go to some of these other dealers in these other towns, they want to schedule it 3 days from now, and it's going to take 8 hours to get it done. They don't have loaner vehicles. Come on. That ain't George Kell Motors. You come here, we'll take care of you. A good friend of mine came in this morning. We're out of loaners. We've got a fleet of loaners.
Right.
We don't have any more. Guess what? She took my truck.
Is that
I gave her my truck.
That's
yeah,
right.
To
Your
go
personal
drive
truck. Your personal
I gave
truck.
her my personal truck to go drive it. I mean, that's what we do around here. Whatever it takes to satisfy you. We don't want to give you one reason why you should go anywhere else. If you'll do business with us here, I don't think you'll ever want to again. All you got to do is come by and experience the George Kell difference.
Can't say any better than that, my friend.
I guess I couldn't.
No, sir. John G., good to see you, my friend. Always a pleasure. George Kell Motor Company in Newport. Come see us. Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.
Hi everybody, I'm Bud Black and welcome to another edition of Remember When. here on Cable 15 TV and on our website at cable15tv.com and all around the world. And we appreciate folks from old Newport residents who have let us know that, hey, I see your shows and it sure is fascinating to watch. And we thank you for watching on the web also at cable15tv.com and on Facebook also, where these programs are available to you. You know the face, you know the name. For those of you that don't know, this is Mr. John Purdy, who is our special guest on Remember When. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Absolutely. I have known John Purdy all of my life. You see, he's considerably older than I am. A good solid 10 years. We joke about that, and we know that because we're always 10 years apart.
That's right.
I happen to be 65, so.
That makes me 55.
Yeah, right.
75, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
We're really not 10 years apart, though, bud. We've been friends a long time.
Long time. It's
really
absolute truth, and it's been a good friendship and a good business relationship. We do a little business with one another down through the years, which is the way it should be in a small community.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody's got to help everybody, and we want to find out. You and I were talking before we started filming about some of the things that we want to know. You know, we want to know things about John Purdy that most folks might not know. You know, that think they know you, and you know, you've been 75 years. There's a lot of knowledge up there in that head, and I always start Remember When programs by asking the first question: where and when were you born?
June the 7th, 1940, and I was born in Jonesboro.
Okay.
Came to Newport as an infant, I assume, and have been here ever since.
You don't remember moving, huh?
No, don't remember moving around.
Okay.
Don't remember moving around.
1940.
1940, right before World War II.
About a year and a half before
Yeah.
the war. So you're a little too young to remember Pearl Harbor, the start of the war.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But you can remember, I'm sure, World War II, parts of it when you're 5 or 6 years old. Huh?
I can, you know, we lived down on Walnut Street, and we lived over the store, so to speak, and my family had the flower shop, and we lived there, and I can remember, maybe because of photographs and maybe because I've heard so much about it, the soldiers from the airfield coming into our store to buy flowers to send home to their girlfriends and their wives and their mothers and this type stuff. And I've always kind of felt like that the Army Airfield Base was kind of one of the strong suits or the driving force of our business being successful, because we got a good start there. There were talking about people that were at the Army Airfield Base. Wasn't your daddy out there?
As a matter of fact, if it weren't for that air base and the United States Marine Corps, I wouldn't be sitting here.
That's right. I remember your daddy well. If I'm not mistaken, after the war, he worked at Short and Brownlee.
Absolutely. Sold Buicks.
Sold big Buicks. And then he had his tire store up just kind of
down on
east
3rd
of
Street.
Well, I remember down here on Malcolm Avenue.
Yeah, well, he started actually. We're down where the old farm and ranch and Adams Brothers was.
Okay.
Had Buddy Black's tire store there in 1956, and in '62 moved to where Hardee's is
That's
now.
right. That's right. I remember that. Buddy was.
And Buddy Hemingway had a fruit market across the street. Yeah.
You know, those people like your daddy that these World War II veterans that we call them, you know, they call them the greatest generation, and I guess.
And they're about gone now.
Unfortunately, but you know, I've always kind of, you sit back and you look at people like that, and you've just kind of looked up to them all your life. You got your Wardell Penningtons who are still here, and everybody
who's
loves
been a guest on this show.
Yeah, why I'm sure. Yeah. You know, I mean, you couldn't have it without Wardell,
Right.
and you know, and there's a lot of people like that. But that's kind of where we lived, and went to Walnut Street School. Walnut Street School was where what used to be the Kroger store. I don't know what's in there. It's
Yeah,
it's like so many other buildings in Newport. It's a little bit on the unsightly side.
Somebody
but
mentioned the other day about that building. I said it was Orscheln, and I said, I remember that.
I remember
you don't hear that name very often.
Orscheln, that's right. I saw an Orscheln store someplace not too long ago.
Well, you and I travel around a little bit, so you know.
Very little for me.
Yeah.
But
I might remind everybody that what we talk about that. Y'all know me. I'm a one-legged guy with a cane, and John's working with oxygen here. So it just that's part of the good fortune of getting to be a little older.
oh,
So,
it sure is.
you know.
Talking about this oxygen, I hear people tell me, and I'm sure you do too, Bud, because tell me how sorry they feel for me because I'm wearing this oxygen.
Yeah.
You know, there's an alternative to it.
Absolutely. People
and it's not. You know, I could sit at home and probably wouldn't need it. But I don't want to sit at home all the time. I enjoy getting out. I don't get out a lot, but I get out more than I could if I didn't have this.
I had a gentleman tell me the other day, and I've told this story before. He said, "Bud, you're walking with a limp."
That's
I said,
right.
the first two words are the only thing that matter. You're
That's right.
walking.
You're walking.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I can drive my truck, and I can get and go where I need to go and be.
Yeah, and you
and
can.
And it's not easy, but you know, no big deal. I am here. I'm moving around. And they said, well, don't you even have to go to dialysis? I surely do, 3 days a week. And then it's a wonderful tool to have so I can stay alive.
You know, and the thing about this, you can be an inspiration to so many people, and that's, and I know you have been. And
I
know, Newport's
you're glad we have oxygen, and I'm glad that we have these other things.
Absolutely.
And we've grown and lived in Newport, Arkansas, basically all our lives. And hey, listen, you know, it's not a perfect community, but it's a wonderful community.
Well, and it's home.
Yeah.
You know, it's home.
And you and I gripe sometimes because we love it so much.
Well, that's true. You know, and it's everything's supposed to be positive in your life, and you know, it's sad to go up and down Walnut Street and Hazel Street and Laurel and Elm and Vine that used to have such beautiful homes on them, and they're not there. Holden Avenue after World War II was just about the most perfect street of any place in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, they had all these homes, and they'd been built for veterans, and they raised their family there.
Including my family.
Oh, that's right. And, you know, it's just, Newport's a great place. It's a great place.
I'm glad I was born here. I'm glad it's home. The people have told me, just like they've told you, well, you could have gone somewhere and done better. I could have gone somewhere and made more money. I could have been more of a somebody. But let me tell you what, I didn't want to. I was tremendously happy here. These are my folks. Been around them all my life, just like you. And so I can complain because I want it to be better. You know, I want it to be perfect, knowing that's unattainable. I'm just like you, Purdy.
Well, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. You know, well, you know, we do. We all want our home to be better. And, you know, it's just, things have changed in this town. I remember as a kid.
And we don't like change.
Well, we like some change. You know, if it benefits us, we're all for it. But if it doesn't, you know. Well, I remember as a kid, you couldn't get down Front Street at any time of the day on Saturday, and many other days during the week were just as busy. And my grandmother was a very large lady, and she lived down on Ash Street, right just east of the Blue Bridge. And I remember my daddy would go down there on Saturday morning and take her car. And then later on the day on Saturday, he would pick her up and take her down to Front Street, and she'd sit there and visit with people until the stores were all closed. And the stores closed when the last person was there. Thinking about business like that, Carrie, we were in the Village Mall at one time, and we were right next door to Van Atkins department store. Robert Van Hook and I were great buddies, and we'd say, well, how'd you do last? Oh, I did fine. How'd you? Oh, I did great, you know. And we'd compare notes on what we did. But you don't have no conception of what business was like on Saturday if you didn't see Earl's Van Hook stack of $1 bills on Monday morning. They'd be stacked up that tall. They might have 2 or 3 stacks.
Yeah, not hundreds, but ones.
Ones. And he used to say, if you're going to be in the drip dry business, there's one thing you need to have. You need to have the ability to count a lot of $1 bills, and you need to have a nickel handkerchief. and you can't find either one anymore. But like I say, you know, the Grossmans and the Sailing Friends and the Spencers and the Snaps, Cornelius Hurley, Ed Holt, all these people had grocery stores.
N.A. Gillahan.
And then you can go on
I
and on.
worked for N.A. for a while.
Yeah,
as a kid.
You go in there and have lunch at Fred's Lunchroom. Grover Phillips was there across from the old First National Bank and the Merchants and Planters Bank. There were a lot of things to do. Kids could always find jobs out of Liberty.
We had the Strand and the Capitol both.
Boy, they sure did. Miss Edith Evans said she babysitted 2 or 3 generations.
And she made a true statement.
Yeah, she did. What a glorious lady, too.
Saturday morning free shows in the summertime. You remember that? You had to get the tickets at the sponsors.
I don't know that I remember that.
That's probably, you probably were in the business community by then, but as a kid, we used to go play Little League Baseball and then hurry to get to the theater on Saturday morning because of the free show.
I don't remember the free shows, but I remember going up there and across the street from the Strand Theater, Roy Evans who was Edith's husband, had a newspaper called the Jackson County Democrat. And next door to the Jackson County Democrat, Mart Stevens had a restaurant, and it was called Stuckey's.
Okay.
And we'd go in there and get a hamburger and go to the movie and get popcorn. I don't think they sold candy and soft drinks and that sort of stuff at the picture show. I think it was just popcorn. And you could do all of that for about 50 cents on Saturday. And you had walked up there. And then on Sunday afternoon, you'd go to the Capitol Theater. And that was a little bit cheaper. I don't remember how much they charged at the Capitol, but...
You know what Bill Keaty said? He said the Capitol was so rough, he said that you walked by, said they paid you to come in.
Nah, he's got that wrong. He always exaggerates.
A little bit.
A little bit. And,
I've been in the Capitol several times myself.
I'm kind of trying to speak the truth to correct what all these renegades have said in the past. We used to, something else we used to do as a kid. I was a Boy Scout, and I can't hardly sit down and talk about being a Boy Scout without mentioning Ray Fann. Like Edith Evans, he raised a lot of young men in this town. But I remember every year they had a polio was a factor during that time.
Terrible.
Before the Salk vaccine, and every year they would have Boy Scouts to come to the picture show, and they would have a trailer, I think is what you call it today, on polio, and they'd have some pretty music with it, inspirational type, You'll Never Walk Alone, which was not, and they said, you got to have money to help do it. And the Boy Scouts always went down and collected money during that thing. They'd turn the house lights on, and it was always a real treat to get to go down there and do that, because Miss Edith Evans said, if you'll dress up as a Boy Scout and come up here and do this, we'll let you in the show free. And they did it for a week, and so you got to go up there every night during the week and didn't have to stay home. And you're 12 or 13 years old. And,
You're talking about 50 cents to go to the movie. We would go on Saturdays at noon.
Yeah.
And they would start a double feature, and it was usually a scary movie or a monster movie, or a sci-fi movie, and they had 2 different ones. You know, one would show at noon, and the other one at 2 o'clock, and then again at 4. You sat there twice. You sat there all day long until 9, 10 o'clock that night.
Till somebody came and get you.
Absolutely, you know, and they would call. They would call Miss Edith Evans and say, tell Bud we'll pick him up in 30 minutes. And she would come down and tell us, or the usher would come down and tell us, you know, okay, your parents are on their way here. They'll be here in about 10, 15 minutes. Oh, okay, you know, I'll meet them out front.
And if you were ready to go home, she'd call them to come get you too.
That's right.
I remember that.
Yeah, ready to go.
Well, I remember those double features on Saturday. They always had a cowboy that I remember, and then they sometimes would have a serial, which would be a short feature, and those would continue each week, and they'd run about 15 weeks, and they'd get you to come to the movie for 15 straight Saturdays, which you were going to anyway. And then they'd always have a Roy Rogers, a Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy, oh gosh, the Long Ranger, and they had, and his buddy Tonto, who was Jay Silverhill.
Jay Silverhill. And Clayton Moore as the Lone Ranger.
I couldn't tell you who that was, but boy, Tonto was all right. And of course, you always think about
Tonto was the smart one in that relationship. He was the one that kept him out of the big jams and got him out of trouble, you know.
And of course, I always was fond of Roy and Gene. I still like to joke about Roy and Gene. As a matter of fact, we, you know, the internet has. I guess I'm lucky because I feel like I've only seen the good things on the internet.
Right. And you've lived long enough to see the change, and it's been one of those positive changes you talked about.
Somebody sent me an email, or I found it, and I love to collect pictures from the internet. And but they sent me a whole bunch of pictures of Roy Rogers and Trigger and Dale Evans and all these people, and all that were associated with him, and I really had a lot of fun passing them around on the internet to folks that.
Gabby Hayes.
Yeah, but he was a second tier guy.
Yeah, second tier guy like Pat Buttram, you know.
Yeah, well,
and the Jeep, Nellie Bell.
Well, I mean, you know, Roy and Gene were kind of up there.
They
by
were
themselves.
superstars. Superstars.
And.
And actually, Hopalong was just a little grade below them. I mean, Roy and Gene were the class.
And then there was a guy by the name of Rex Allen, and he had a horse. I can't remember what his name was, but I've always been fond of horses. We used to. I like to tell Gay Lacey. I said, you know, I remember the days that your granddaddy would get instructions from me before he would start his farming operation. He had a barn down on Garfield Street, and we'd go down there to see the horses. And I mean, we'd go from the time we were probably 5 or 6 years old until they tore that barn down.
So you developed a love for horses?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I didn't know that, see?
See, I like all animals, you know. Love to see, love to drive. You know, you go up in the hills, and I like to go up in the hills a lot and just drive around, and you just see so many cattle up there. You see pretty horses. You between here and
and you have had pets down through the years that all family members. You know,
absolutely.
Just like me.
Yeah. Never had a horse or a cow or any of that sort of stuff, but they're animals.
Right.
There's a man down here that between, I guess, Russell and Ball that's got an awful lot of miniature horses or miniature ponies. Okay. Like, I guess they're what, oh my goodness, I've gone blank.
They're Shetland ponies? Or,
no, I think they're more miniature horses.
Okay, all
right. Miniature horses. Parnell.
Larry.
I just went blank on that. Larry trains.
Okay.
These are probably Larry train. I think I've never been out there, but I understand he really trains fine miniature horses and show horses. which I've been tempted to go out there, and I'm going to, because I think that's awfully interesting.
We're having fun. We're visiting with John Purdy. We're going to take a break and let us sit here and we're on a good roll, just talking about anything and everything. I think it's fascinating to hear John tell stories about growing up in Newport, Arkansas, and his likes and dislikes, and that's what the show is all about. It's called Remember When. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.
Welcome back, everybody, to Remember When. We're visiting with John Purdy, lifelong resident, businessman, Newport, Arkansas. We're going to talk about his great family business down through the years. But first I want to talk about, let's go back to junior high school. Who were your running buddies? Who did you hang with? And what did you guys do in the 50s?
Well, I can't answer all of that.
Well, no. It's still a family show, you know.
You know, I was telling you earlier, we started school at Walnut Street School in 1946 in the first grade. And we went through the 5th grade at Walnut Street School.
Okay.
And then they built the junior high school out in the park next to the high school. And we went there in the 6th grade. They had the 6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe, there. So I was in the very first class that went to that junior high school building. And we had a lot of good friends. Many of them we are still with, still associate with. Today, well, in July is going to be the 14th year that 8 or 10 of us have gone on a fishing trip up to Norfolk. We tell a lot more stories than we do fishing.
Are you trout fishing?
Well, we're really storytelling.
Well, okay, but
yeah, trout fishing.
Because
that's right.
I know, and I don't know if you still go.
Every chance I get.
Okay, good.
Which is about once or twice a year.
Okay, but you used to go when you first got the fever. You used to go a bunch.
Yeah. But we go up there. We rent a house and we stay 4 or 5 days. We eat like crazy. We got some people that love to cook, and and it all comes back to growing up in Newport, Arkansas. That's and a lot of our stories deal with Newport, Arkansas. We get to talking about Ray Fan, who was an inspiration to us and as a Boy Scout leader.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Bailey, who was the football coach. Oh,
Jack and Betty Bailey.
That's right. What a great guy, Betty Bailey.
Saw Betty about a year ago.
Okay, when
she was out at Money and Poppy's.
Well, I'm sorry I missed her. Every time she came to town, she'd come in and see me. And
she and her daughter Leanne.
I
saw them.
Leanne Mendenhall.
Right.
Married Simon Mendenhall's daughter.
Right, absolutely.
But when we sold our store, Betty Bailey called me and told me how happy she was that we were going to get to retire and take life easy, or not easy, but
I was lucky as a kid. I went to a couple of cotton bowls. My parents went, and Jack and Betty went along with the group. They were all running buddies, you know. And there's a great story about Jack Bailey buying a little small pig. It's a true story. And he kept the pig all the time they were in Dallas in the bathtub during the Cotton Bowl trip.
Oh, I just don't believe that Coach Bailey would do anything like that.
No, absolutely.
And I'm not going to ask what that
would tarnish anybody's reputation.
Oh my gosh, I went to some of those Cotton Bowls. In 1960, they played Duke.
Yeah.
And good game. We lost it. It seems like best football game I've ever seen, though, and I got to think
7-6.
Well, that's not the best football. The best football game I ever saw was a Cotton Bowl, gosh, in probably the late '80s, and Arkansas played Tennessee.
Okay.
And half of that crowd had on red and half of it had on orange, and somebody was always doing something. And if one team was doing something, their fans were happy, and the other team, when they did something, their fans were happy, and it was a great game. The worst part of that game is we started home after the game, and about half of the Arkansas fans and about half of the Tennessee fans, and we had to use the same road home. and traffic was bumper to bumper from Dallas to Little Rock.
A lot of hand signals between each other.
No, it was at night. It was at night,
okay.
and I'm kind of a white knuckle driver. My kids will laugh. They laugh about me till this day, and I mean it was about 90 miles an hour all the way home. Okay.
Oh.
Well, it was nothing like a good Razorback football game.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
if you hadn't seen one, you need to.
Let me always and now I think you can go to Fayetteville and good chance of getting a ticket to most any game.
Sure.
And with the 75,000 seats that they have, a little tougher at Little Rock, of course.
Yeah.
And that I don't think they're ever going to build a new stadium in Little Rock. I don't know. It's a lot of money, but we'll see. They keep talking about it, but in an effort to get the Hogs to come back and play more games.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. All right. You're in high school and graduated in '58.
Yep.
And then?
I just kind of went around to school and just kind of decided I was going to come home and go to work, and that pretty well takes care of that.
We went to the university.
That's right. And
what'd you study? I don't know.
I studied business.
Okay.
So, studied business, and I don't know if I learned it. Well, I guess I did learn a lot. It's amazing some of the things that that store of ours did that we had some pretty good marketing ideas, and we'd sit down and talk about what we were going to do, and we would do it, and it paid off pretty good.
And the store, by the way, let's go into a little history. Opened in 1931.
1931, and it started out, I think, on Newport Avenue, at the corner of Newport Avenue and Hortense. And then it moved over to 610 Main Street, which is just north of what was the Catholic Church on Rimmel Avenue in Maine. And then in about 1939,
it's all through the Depression years, folks.
Yeah. It was kind of really started right after the Depression. My mother was a registered nurse, and she came to town as I think maybe private duty nursing, and then she got a WPA job and was a nurse. And this was after the Depression, and they, like everybody else, had some financial problems through the Depression.
Yeah, who didn't? Right?
And they opened this bridge down here in about 1930, 1931 or two, sometime in there. And my daddy somehow got a job taking up tolls on the bridge. And I remember any number of people used to say the first person they met when they came to Newport was Bill Purdy, because he was on the bridge taking up tolls. Mr. Mondi Thaxton was, he told me that every time I ever saw him all of my life and that's Marvin and Kenneth Thaxton's father, who started I guess he started the funeral home, the furniture store, and I think it was started out as a funeral home and a furniture
combination
store. Yeah, and but he was a nice man, and of course I've just been terribly fond of Marvin and Kenneth both all my life. just two very, very
And
fine
Marvin's been a guest on this program.
people. And they both love Newport, and just lived here. Of course, Carolyn and Colleen, and just great people, just great family, and we got so many good families.
So
here.
Bill Purdy's taking up tolls
That's right.
in the Depression.
After the Depression.
Okay.
After.
Okay. All right.
And so then he had a service station during the war, and when they were building these levees, and the service station was up at the corner of Hazel and 3rd Street, right across from the Episcopal Church, on the parking lot of what was the First National Bank, right there next to the Christian Church, and right north of that was Dr. Gray's Hospital. And then there was a home for the nurses that lived there next. And then on the corner was just a great institution in Newport. There was the Hazel Hotel and the Hazel Hotel Coffee Shop. And boy, they served great meals in there on Sunday lunch and all during the week. And
I remember two things about the Hazel Hotel. When we had the 1958 regional American Legion baseball 8-state championship.
Okay.
My dad was the guide and host for Nacogdoches, Texas, who won the Texas state championship. They stayed at the Hazel Hotel, so I got to go with them, with my dad and show them around town, and take them to where they were supposed to eat and do all this, and when they played, as a host and a student host and everything. And the other thing I just remember is when the thing burned.
oh, I do too.
Oh my goodness! What a fire!
My grandfather was quite a character, and he came to Newport in 1908 to work at Wolf Goldman Mercantile, and I think Wolf Goldman occupied the block, or the half a block, that is now between Laurel and Hazel Street on Front Street. And they could have occupied the half a block just south of there also, where the professional building and on over to the Merchants and Planters Bank parking lot. I think maybe that was what they owned, but that's what brought him to Newport as a shoe salesman.
You have seen some changes.
Yeah, he has. I had.
Well,
But, well, and Kenneth Axton, he kept his boat up on Front Street, and he called it the NYC, and that was the Newport Yacht Club. and he had a metal plate, a door plate, that said Wolf Goldman Mercantile Company, and Kenneth and I were good friends. Kenneth and I, we went fishing together a lot, and he put that NYC there to primarily just kind of stick a needle in the side of Bill Pratt, because Pratt lived in Florida, and he was a member of the Naples Yacht Club, and so Kenneth always wanted to give him a hard way to go. And
The
so
NYC.
That's right, the Yacht Club.
Everybody remember that now for future reference. The NYC was
Newport Yacht Club, and but those were, those people. I could go on and on. I grew up with a great bunch of people. Newport kind of ended at Charlie Taylor's Corner. It went a couple of blocks over into Gray's Addition, and we didn't have all this stuff
the
out
cotton
here.
fields out here.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the Wolf Goldman estate out here. But we had friends that lived in Gray's Addition, and then down on the lower end of town we had friends that lived down there, and every place in between.
And people in East Newport, as you say, Holden and McLean,
Yeah.
and those new areas that were were GI Bill areas.
That's right.
Basically.
You know, all those white houses on Dill Street and Malcolm Avenue used to be immaculate. And yeah, I mean, all the time.
And after the war, the country was flush with money, and GI Bill and the government helping the soldiers, and to get readjusted.
And people wanting to make a change. I think when you get right down to it, you just, you look at some of those people that have. I mean, you can look right here in Newport at those people that have made those changes. You think about. You certainly think about what Sam Walton did, not necessarily in Newport, but just his driving force to be a success and to share with his employees, and unfortunately I think that Walmart's changed a lot. It doesn't have that Sam Walton feel that it used to have.
I was visiting yesterday, as a matter of fact, when we taped with Governor Beebe, and we were talking, and we mentioned Sam Walton, and he said, what if the first Walmart store had been in Newport? And I said, well, I don't know, that could have been great, could have been bad. I said, the 5 years Sam was here, I don't know what happened to Sam if that didn't spur him on to go do Walmart. I don't know if that would have happened without Newport, Arkansas. I mean, you can look at it either way.
Oh, absolutely.
But he had a pretty good 5-year run in Newport, Arkansas.
Apparently he did.
Apparently
he lived kind of right. There was an alley that separated our house and his house, and of course we had a choice downtown. On one corner we had Ben Franklin, which was his, and on the other corner we had Sterling's, which was owned by a group of people in Little Rock. But
my mother worked for Sam.
Oh, there's a lot of people that worked for him in that store. One day we were celebrating somebody's birthday party, and it was a group of men, and we were all sitting around, and it was age from the 30s up through the 60s, and there were about 8 or 10 of us, and we were sitting around having lunch, and we got through and started talking, and this was in the early days of Walmart, and somebody asked a good friend of his here in town, said, did you ever have the idea that Sam Walton would go on and do what he's done? And his reply was, no one can conceive of that.
Right.
No one can conceive of that.
Too big. It's a
And
Steve
he
Jobs, today's generation, when we compare it to Steve Jobs and Apple.
Yeah, and it's you can't take anything away from Apple, but you sure can't take anything away from Walmart either. We always felt in our store that you can't compete with a store like Walmart, so you really don't need to try. But there's room for everybody. And I'm a real fan of Walmart. I think Walmart has done awfully good. And I don't think that Walmart had anything to do with the decline of Newport or any other small town.
Mom and pop operations. And
Absolutely.
I mean, just changing times were going to change the mom and pop operations.
We had a whole bunch of great stores down on Front Street, and
nothing else.
And there were very few of us second generation folks that wanted to come back to Newport and live, and I think that's what hurt small towns more so than Walmart.
Right, and you and I can look right now, and you and I have been in that group that, that have small businesses in Newport, Arkansas, and have stayed with it more than, we've been at it 25 years now here in our business, which is hard to believe.
Absolutely.
I mean, it just, started small thing, whim, and had a riverboat trader paper, and, had a lot of fun with that, and the television came along, and it became successful for us, and all of a sudden we're a small business that's 25 years old. In small towns this day and age, you don't see many of them.
No, you really don't.
And we have driven down Malcolm Avenue many times and looked and said, there's 3 or 4 that are hometown owned now. That's really about it. Retail outlets, and it just, very, very limited,
Yeah, it really is, and it's sad. You know, and there's, you know, I really appreciate.
It's not only in Newport.
No, absolutely.
Right.
Newport, I think when you start down, say, at Helena, and you come all the way up through Mariana and Wynn and Forest City,
Right.
McCrory and Augusta,
The Delta
unfortunately,
especially,
you
yeah.
know.
Uh-huh.
And then you get over there, your Mark Trees and your Lepantos and Osceolas. You know, all these towns are having a hard time going. Some people have been able to attract some awfully good industry. I think Newport attracted an awful lot of good industry early, right after World War II. The Victor Metals, the Brown Jordans, who else? The American Lanterns,
Right.
the Reveres.
Right.
All of those were good, solid companies, but you know, it just got cheaper to make this and do this merchandise in another country, and it's just that simple. And you get a problem with that camera up there, buddy, who do you call? You call somebody in Japan or somebody in India.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
with
That's
that
what
technology.
or if you buy a new one, it's shipped in from Indonesia.
Yeah.
And
it's,
or China.
Well, I was looking at something this week, and I know what it was. It was a printer cartridge. And I opened it up, and I really wanted to kind of see how to be sure and get it in right, and I couldn't find any directions in English.
Yeah. In Chinese or French.
I couldn't find any in English. I'm sure they were there, but that's, you know, I guess it's a sign of the times. And but we've had a good run, and hopefully, you know, they're doing a tremendous job downtown, and they've got some great plans. I understand. I was in Little Rock yesterday and didn't get back, and I think John Chadwell's doing a good job. I think he's trying to promote this town,
Right,
and I think he's on the. You know, we can draw people in down there for concerts at night. I think that's good. If this database program of I've always felt like we could get more help from people we knew than people we don't know, and it goes back to business. You know, I always felt like it was cheaper to maintain a customer than it was to get a customer.
Okay, right.
And
Right. We'll talk about the philosophy, that also a couple of things that John is interested in. We'll talk about the Blue Bridge, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Walnut Grove Cemetery a little bit. Okay, how's that sound?
well, that sounds like a winner.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Remember When. I am Bud Black, and we are visiting with John Purdy. Those of you that see our program on Cable 15 TV, we appreciate that. It's also available on cable15tv.com. A lot of folks who aren't on the cable, you know, watch our internet site quite a bit, or it's on Facebook, available to you. And speaking of Facebook, I want to talk about your business and its growth. And real quick, we went from Walnut Street, and then later in the late 60s, got to consider making a major move.
Moved to the Village Mall. Great move. Proved a lot of stuff to us. Village Mall was a great addition to the city of Newport, and we were one of the first tenants in there. We started out with
69 maybe? Or?
I'm gonna say it was probably maybe like 71,
Okay,
72,
all right.
And we stayed in there for in a small store for basically 4 years or so, and then a larger store opened up between Van Atkins and Walmart, and so we moved right between the two of those two stores, and we really had a good business there. We stayed there for almost 15 years, and developed some new lines of business for us and for Newport also in Jackson County, and we stayed there for almost 15 years, and then we Walmart decided they were going to build a new store. And they had probably 60 employees in their store every day, and every one of them came to work in their own car. And you got a big parking lot and you don't have a lot of cars on it, people are going to kind of stay away from it. And so I wanted to get a smaller parking lot, and we were able to buy a piece of property up at 815 Malcolm, and which is still where Purdy's is located, and that was in, I guess 88, 90, somewhere in there. And that was really a great move for us. We had a lot of exposure. We had a lot of residents out on the east part of town, and then we had a lot of businesses, banks, courthouses, churches, schools, and that was just kind of a center location. I have any number of people say that I said, I went to somebody's house down there and said they gave me directions to turn at Purdy's, and it's pretty good. Right. Pretty good. It's a pretty good landmark, and but it was a great location, and
you got to doing some emails. You were one of the first to email and use direct mail quite a bit in your business. You talk about maintaining a customer base as opposed to trying to attain a new customer base.
Well, we did a lot of direct mail.
Yeah.
We and did a lot of direct mail to encourage people to come to our store to spend their dollars with us when they needed our product, and I think that was very successful for us. We back in the I don't know, sometime back in there things really got tough, and interest rates went way high.
Yeah,
it's
terrible. 20%.
People couldn't afford to do a lot of things that they wanted to do, and about that time's when we decided we were going to start doing a lot of direct mail marketing to our customers. And,
if you had a little money in a CD, it was the only thing
oh
that
boy,
could help.
wasn't it true?
5-year CDs at 16-17%.
I tell you what,
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean, you go buy a 5-year CD today, and you have to pay them.
Yeah, like going to the Capitol Theater. See?
That's right. Yeah, but so the direct mail marketing was very successful for us. We had an awful lot of customers and a big customer base of so many people in Jackson County. And a huge base of people who had left Jackson County.
Yes.
And we certainly didn't overlook those people. They were very important to us. And
well, people that have connection in a community, just because they leave the community, there may be things that happen there that they need to know about. Deaths, weddings, promotions, congratulatory, that they can pick up the phone or get on the internet and have always been able to just contact Purdy's, and know that it was going to be taken care of.
Yeah, we had a tremendous following, and I'm sure they still have it down there, because they're doing a good job.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, John faced retirement, some health issues, and you guys, I know you looked pretty hard before divesting yourselves of the business and selling it, and finally came across just a great fit with Sheridan and John Chadwell.
Yeah. And it's been good for us, and hopefully it's been equally as good for them, or better, because they deserve it. They're working hard. I mean, but you got to work hard in the retail business. You got to work hard in any business you're in, and if you don't work hard, you're just not going to have the benefits, the rewards.
You were for many, many years a florist shop.
That's right.
Then you got into gift departments.
Yeah, that's right.
And that had to have really been a boost to the store.
It was. We did about 50% flowers and 50% gifts.
It was Purdy's Flowers, Purdy's Florists, and then Purdy's Flowers and Gifts.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of changes. When I first came back to Newport in 1961 or 62, we were buying flowers from Colorado. The high altitude made flowers grow great out there.
Okay.
And we bought flowers from California. We'd buy them from growers out there. We'd buy them from jobbers, middlemen here, whatever we could get. And then we started buying from bigger jobbers, and then we started buying from bigger jobbers down in South Florida. They got things happened in Colorado and California that it was more profitable to raise condominiums than it was carnations. And so all of the growers quit, and and they sold their property, and you can't blame them. And then they started growing a lot of flowers in South America, and they had a very favorable trade with the people in South America. When we left the last 2 or 3 years that we were up there, we bought flowers on an auction.
Okay.
The people in the flower market all around the world is established by a Dutch auction. The prices, it's a supply and a demand situation, and so we had awfully good help at the store at that time, and we always had awfully good help. And so I'd sit back in my office and I would get on the internet and I would buy flowers at an auction. And it would start with asters and go all the way down to zinnias in alphabetical order, and they would have them by different grades and different stem lengths, and so we'd kind of decide what we wanted to buy, and we'd get on the auction, and when something came up, we could just watch the price fall, and then all of a sudden you were ready to buy, but somebody had beat you to it. And so you kind of had to establish what you were willing to pay, and that was a real challenge. Just it added,
getting inventory, yeah.
Yeah, and for flowers, it just added. We got awfully fresh flowers. We took awful good. I think that's one of the. There's a lot of things I can say that are good, but I think we always had good fresh flowers, and that is so important. I think I just think that's one of the best things. I feel like that we went home at night and slept pretty good because we'd had awfully good relationships with our customers, and I don't have much that I can look back and say I'm sorry about in relationship to that business.
Let me say this on a personal note. Anytime down through the years that I made an order at Purdy's, whether I walked in the front door or whether I called, that was handled impeccably. It was handled in a timely manner. Everything was always right about it. And when I talked to John Purdy, the last thing John Purdy would always say is, "Bud, I'll handle that personally for you."
Well,
and I knew that at Purdy's things were going to be done. And John, you mentioned a while ago, you have to have things that the big guy doesn't have, and a lot of that is service.
Oh, it's all
quality.
Service. Yeah. Quality,
caring
service.
about the client.
Yeah.
We've done that in our business.
Yeah.
And it just, in a small town, it works. It's the only thing that does work.
Yeah, used to, you could pick up the phone and call somebody. I'm not going to talk about a florist because that delivery is just part of that business. But, I guess about the only place you can pick up the telephone right now and call and get something delivered would be Jimmy Darling's and Norman Baker Pharmacy. It's just, you're going to call out here at Walmart and get them to deliver. It's going to be, Eric Schaffner probably would, but he's the exception to the rule. But like I say, it's things have changed. Things have changed.
Speaking of change, jump in here and change the subject real quick, because I know before we run out of time, there's a couple things you want to talk about. The Blue Bridge. Blue Bridge, we're right in the middle. As we taped, we're in the middle of the city trying to decide what they want to do with the bridge.
Well, you know, I have absolutely no feelings about. I mean, I do have, but they're kind of private feelings about the Blue Bridge. My daddy, we were talking about earlier, took the toll taker up there, and I guess we already talked about that.
Right.
But I remember what made me talk about the Blue Bridge is I have a friend in Little Rock who has just had a painting or a portrait painted of the Blue Bridge that they want to give to a friend of theirs for some time down the road. And they asked me to find out kind of when they were going to tear it down, and so I got with the highway department and found out a little bit of information about it. But this person painted it, and I showed this picture to Bud, and it's an absolutely gorgeous painting.
Cannot tell it's a painting. It looks like a photograph.
It looks like a photograph, but it's a painting. Yeah. But it's it's gorgeous. But I remember I guess everybody in Jackson County that's been around here a long time loved George Kell, and myself included. What a great guy.
Absolutely.
But he says, I'm going to tell you one thing. He was on, Dale Buffers put him on the State Highway Commission, making these appointments for their friends in their home counties and things. And George Kell says, I tell you what, says that's the first Blue Bridge we've got in the state of Arkansas. And he said, it's going to be the last one, too. Every car in Newport had blue paint on it before that was over.
A quick story on Mr. Kell. Here, let me interject something. There's a famous story, a true story, about Joe DiMaggio batting for the Yankees and George Kell playing third base. And they thought DiMaggio might be bunting. It was a bunting situation. Third baseman charges. So Mr. Kell's charging, and they bunt the ball, DiMaggio does, it's foul. He says, all right, next pitch, he comes charging down that line. He said, I'm waiting for DiMaggio to turn and bunt. And he said, he's still And I said, the story goes that the ball hits you right above the left eye. He said, Bud, that's absolutely wrong. That's all rumor. It's not true. It got me right between the eyes.
I'll tell you what, George Kell, and buddy, I know you're a great sports guy, and have seen all sides of all the games. George Kell's what an athlete, a professional athlete, is supposed to be like.
A hero.
He would be a great quarterback for the New England Patriots. But he was. He just what an asset he was to Jackson County.
And when he was here, when he was home, he was one of the guys.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There was no stuffiness. There was none of this. There was, it just.
George Kell was George Kell.
You could walk in that office and talk to him. Hello, Mr. George, how you doing? Anybody come in, get an autograph?
Yeah.
Amazing. Don't make them like that.
No, sir, they sure don't. But he was a dandy. He was quite an asset.
Okay. So anyway, the Blue Bridge has a special place for you in your heart. Some history there.
We used to ride our bicycle up it, and. A few folks would ride.
I hate driving a car across it now.
I don't do it. I don't do it.
If
I've got to go to the south side at Batesville, I go like I'm going to Newark and turn to Oilcross. I've made a commitment that I'm not going to cross that bridge anymore.
Okay.
I'm going to wait until the new one comes.
All right. Well, it's on its way. They're
sure
really working on it.
But it's just like I say, it's been there. I've talked to somebody from Walnut Ridge this last week, and they said, I really would like to have that Blue Bridge to stay. He says, because every time we ever went to Little Rock, we crossed that Blue Bridge, and we knew we were getting close to home when we came back and crossed it again. So, it's just not Newport's bridge; it's all eastern Arkansas that have crossed that bridge.
Yeah, we know we're getting there. It's
absolutely,
close.
Absolutely.
The other thing near and dear to your heart is your work and several other people working with Walnut Grove Cemetery.
Oh, that's
and we have been through some tough times due to weather and things that have happened in the last 5-6 years. But if you haven't been out to Walnut Grove Cemetery, to visit a gravesite, whatever. Go just to see the cemetery. It's amazing to me how beautiful the thing looks now.
Well, it really is. Of course, you know, it takes an awful lot of money to operate that cemetery, and the only source of income we have is from people who have loved ones out there who will make donations all through the year. And we've got an excellent caretaker in the name of Brian Gibson. He just does a great job. Eddie Cooley taught him how to do it and what to do, and he's just picked up on what Eddie taught him, and he's just taken it to a whole different level out there. And it's people are happy with it. I don't have much to do. I'm retired from selling daisies, and so I enjoy. I don't want to sit at home in a chair. I love to read, but I don't want to read all day, and I got to have something to do, and I need to walk around a little bit. But I got some stairs in my house, and I go up and down those stairs. I got a little office upstairs, and but there's I think from a landscape situation, we've done an awful lot with the cemetery. We've at the end of last year, what they had was the flat stone section. We just dwelled on this. But Brian, and he got him some helpers, they lifted every stone in that section and reset it. And and lined it up, you know, and the cemetery did this. This wasn't the people that did this. And that section looked bad. We had a lot of lots in there, and people weren't going to buy them unless we improved the looks of the cemetery. And so they're there. And right now we are working in conjunction with the Jackson County Historical Society, which, gosh, I tell you what, they've got the history of Jackson County.
It's amazing.
And it is incredible, and all of this stuff.
Especially those of us that grew up here and have lived here.
Yeah.
You should go and find out. You should join the society to begin with if you're not a member.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the information that is available to you have told some great things here today. Things that even I did not know. Oh, this was there and this was that. They've got such a record available. And it's amazing to me to just read and find out, you know, well, golly gee, I remember something being on this corner, but I didn't know about this, and this, you know.
You know, James Morgan, you were asking about people that I grew up with. James Morgan and I graduated from high school together.
Yeah, he was a great historian.
And incredible. I try to run across things and try to, the cemetery out there is over 150 years old. It's incredible. It's older than Newport.
You can walk through there and look at some of the older grave sites, and you're talking about people born, you know, before the Civil War.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can look at them on the internet. We don't have their dates on there yet, but we're going to get that on there next.
Right.
But right now with the Historical Society, they've offered it to all the cemeteries in Jackson County. They've got to have some form of business established. Like we're a 501c13 nonprofit corporation. And so you have to have that, and you've got to have a regular board of directors that run the cemetery. But they will give $5,000 to any cemetery that will do this, to refurbish some of the old stones out in Jackson in the cemetery. We have accepted the challenge. We have been approved for it. We have looked until we found a group of professionals to come up and do the work, and we have hired the Texas Cemetery Preservation Corporation, LLC.
Okay.
And they're coming up and they're gonna They're going to straighten stones. They're going to put bases on stones. They're going to repair stones, and they're going to clean stones. And so we've gone through and worked at them. And one of the stipulations was that we did is that we were supposed to find family members and encourage them to pay for their stones. And we were trying to pay for stones whose family has left here.
Right. Okay.
And it's unbelievable, the names of people that you run across that you don't recognize. And you know,
somebody would say that was my grandfather.
I've lived here all my life, and I know a lot of names. I know more names than I know people. And I know an awful lot of names out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I do, and I run across these names of people that I've known all my life. And you know, I've got friends out there. Got a friend or two that was killed in Vietnam.
You and I are at that age where we have more friends and acquaintances in Walnut Grove Cemetery than we do have walking around.
You know, you asked me about people I grew up with, and I kind of touched on us going on this fishing trip. Since our last fishing trip, we got two guys that ain't coming back.
Yeah, right.
And
They caught their last trout.
They've caught their last trout. One of them, Eugene Johnson, lived here in Newport for years and years and years.
Right. Well known, well
Yeah,
liked.
well known, well liked. And another one is Fred Denton, who grew up here for a while and left with his family, and then he came back and worked for Mr. Percy Copeland at the Merchants and Planters Bank. And about 40 years ago, 35 years ago, he went to McGee, Arkansas to be a president of a bank down there. And he retired about 2 years ago and died about 2 months ago.
Okay.
And so we're going to miss those guys, but that's kind of, I guess, all part of life.
That's the natural progression.
Absolutely. You know,
That's
of all these people we fish with, we've got, if I'm not mistaken, we have one person who still has one parent living.
Oh, wow.
And so it's, you know, you sit around and you talk about these things, and it's good to reminisce.
My wife, many of you know Jane, by the way, who's retiring this year from ASU Newport. She has a parent living. Her mother, May Pingle, is
That's right.
90 going on 91 years old.
Sings in the choir up at the Christian
Yes,
church.
absolutely.
Beautiful lady. I know Miss May.
Absolutely. 91 years old. And so, you know, I told her she'd outlive all of us, I think.
Well, she's seen it, hasn't she?
Oh, she has seen a bunch. It's fun to sit down. We sat down the other day and we got talking about that. I said, tell me about growing up. Tell me about being born in the 20s, you know, and tell me about, you know, just it was pretty neat.
Talking about reminiscing, I want to tell one story, one flower story.
All right, good one.
Yeah, it is. This is a good one.
All right, here we go.
You know, you don't normally talk about who you send flowers to or who else sends flowers to or anything else. You don't talk about business, but this happened. There was a gentleman by the name of Charles de Gaulle that lived in Paris, and he died. And
yes.
And my daddy called me late one afternoon. I was at home, and he said, I need you to come down here and help me. I said, okay. So I came back down to the store, and my daddy was in the store, and there was a lady was there, and said, I need to send some flowers to General de Gaulle's funeral. I said, okay. And I can take care of that, send them to France. And so we got all the information down. I said, now how you want to sign the card? And she said, just sign it British Nurse, and gave me her name. And I said, okay. I said, that would be awful nice. And I said, you want me to put an address on it so they can communicate with you, acknowledge that they received it? She said, oh no, that won't be necessary. She said, we communicate all the time. It's a small world right here in Newport, Arkansas.
Isn't that the truth?
Okay.
You know? That is amazing.
But I've enjoyed it. Appreciate what y'all are doing.
Thank you, John.
It's I was a little reluctant to do this just because I don't like to talk much.
Well, you know, and I had to pull him fighting and dragging, and I just knew that the things you had to tell, and we could talk for 5-6 hours, you and I, about Newport.
Well, you had some great storytellers on here. I mean, John Miner. Ain't nobody gonna beat John Miner telling the story.
We like hearing perspective and people who've been around and can tell us about things that a lot of us don't remember. And we, believe it or not, we do have a lot of young people that watch your programs and say.
I hope so.
And
there's a lot of heritage here in Newport.
Absolutely, absolutely, a lot of, and we've talked many times about you and I are in that rare breed who stayed here.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And those that have to go. But I think anybody that grew up here or spent any time here, has heartfelt feelings for Newport, Arkansas, and it's always good, as you say, to come back across that Blue Bridge. A lot better than going the other way.
I've got a friend down Little Rock who's kind of probably suffering from Alzheimer's, and he worked his way through high school, but he absolutely loves Newport, and I guarantee you one thing he's got on his head. He's got a Newport baseball cap on his head.
Okay, all right.
He's been away from here almost 60 years.
Right.
I guarantee you he's got a Newport hat on. Good
deal.
Just orange and black all the way.
Good deal. John Purdy, you see John out and about, say hello. He's still a busy fella, not as busy as he was in that shop, but doing things to help the community. And by the way, quickly, we want to make a donation to Walnut Grove Cemetery Association. How do we go about doing that?
Well, you just send the check to Carol Brand, and if you don't send it to her, just send it to me, and we'll send it up to Mike Turner's office. Just send it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, send it to me, send it to Carol Brand. And like I say, this is truly how we do this. The patrons, the families, we raise about $40,000 a year for Walnut Grove Cemetery, and it takes about $40,000 a year to maintain it.
Yeah, and after the ice storm, we had to have a major cleanup and do a lot of tree repair, and stuff. And
needed money, and and it was it took a couple of years before before you could get your wits about you to know what to do, and that's and that's kind of what we've done. We've used a little database and done a little marketing, send letters, and but other people love their cemetery.
Absolutely.
Wherever it is. And,
absolutely. So if you can send a few bucks on up to whatever you can stand, we certainly would appreciate it. This is my friend John Purdy. I'm Bud Black, and thank you so much, folks, for watching Remember When.
Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. As the third generation of this family to own and operate Jackson's Funeral Homes, Jan, Rhett, and Jerry consider it the highest honor to be chosen to care for you and your family during times of need. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822.